Oh, it is working. Okay. Hi, I'm Leslie Aaron's. I'm with Lincoln Lancaster County Human Services. Welcome to Gang Trends. We have Matt Baker and Sergeant Jeff Sorensen today presenting. Please make sure you scan in with your app, or there's a QR code on the door. Otherwise, you can also go into the app and add yourself. It's for CEUs, CLEs, and then also just we can track attendance overall. So I'll pass it off to these guys.
How's it going today? Good. Conference been good so far? Good. It's going to hold this microphone's going to be awkward, so we'll get used to it and pass it back and forth. But I'm Sergeant Jeff Sorensen with the Lincoln Police Department. I've been there for just about 18 years and with the gang unit for almost 10 now. So, and then Matt Baker, he can introduce or talk a little bit about himself here in a minute, but he's been with us since 2015 and has done our gang outreach for us. So he'll get into kind of the nuts and bolts of what he does here in a little bit. We're going to cram kind of a lot into this, so we got about an hour. So bear with us as we kind of fly through some of this stuff. I don't want to kill you with more PowerPoints. I'm sure you guys have seen plenty this week, but there are some pictures, so we'll kind of highlight a few things, and then we'll get into the prevention side of it, which is going to be the highlight for today. I just want to kind of set a foundation of what we're doing here in Lincoln and why it's important for us. So I think Matt's pretty informal too, so if you guys have questions as we go through, please fire them off and let's get the information you guys want out there. Otherwise, we'll get kind of going. I always throw this slide up just to start with our presentations, just because I want everybody to understand that criminal street gang and criminal street gang member are defined by our state statutes. So this is something that sets the foundation and the base for what law enforcement goes off of, and then helps us collaborate with all of our social services and prevention partners. Just a quick foundation for kind of what we're seeing as far as gang trends here. What we're both going to highlight a little bit in the last couple of years, and I'm sure you guys are seeing this across your communities. We're seeing it in the national news. But we are seeing a lot more violent crime being committed by our youth. We are seeing more on a regular basis through social media. Weapons, firearms possession by our youth, auto thefts by our youth are prevalent, as is just the kind of street level violence with their street robberies, assaults, as far as the gang influence is concerned. So we are seeing that. Matt can talk a little bit more about it here with what he's seeing as he works with some of our youth and how his work is impacting them. So a couple different definitions for gangs, if you will. We're going to have hybrid gang, our national gangs, and then our local neighborhood gangs. What you're going to see, or what we're seeing here in Lincoln, is going to be kind of a combination of hybrid gangs and then our local neighborhood gangs that are forming up with the youth within their schools, within their neighborhoods. But they have this hybrid piece to it, where not a lot, but some of what we're seeing here in Lincoln is what I'm going to call the gang ideology, if you will. We are seeing others come from different communities here to Lincoln, and they'll bring with them some of their gang affiliation from somewhere else. That gang affiliation may not be exactly what they bring here, whether it's some sort of gangster disciple, Crips, Blood, but they bring the ideology and the mentality of that gang influence with them. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll start their neighborhood gang or a local street gang here within neighborhoods, within schools, amongst their peers with that same ideology. They're just now calling themselves something different. So they'll create their own name, they'll create their own hand signs, colors, custom clothing, whatever it might be, but they're sharing some of that same ideology, whether it's Crips and Bloods, Gangster Disciple, affiliation, they're kind of adopting that for themselves here. So what you will see is they will represent that local gang here, but then you will also see that they are also representing whatever gang they brought or influence they brought with them, right? So where that individual is kind of representing multiple gangs, which probably for a lot of you over time seems counterintuitive, right? We all probably had some belief or bias that there's a lot of rules that go along with gangs, and in some instances that plays out. Most times, from my experience, we don't see a lot of that. Rules are really fluid as they become convenient or inconvenient. So what I really want to highlight, what Matt and I have really found over the years we've been doing this, is that gang mentality is really what we all should be looking for. Those are the individuals that we want to work with and provide resources to so that they have productive outlets. They're also not influencing their other 5 or 6 peers that we're all now having to work with, or from a law enforcement standpoint, work cases with because they victimized others. So that's kind of the foundation. This is kind of an example of some of our hybrid gangs. You'll see that up in that top left corner, I've got some gang members there that are representing multiple gangs through hand signs. Crips, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords. Down in the bottom, we're seeing some Gangster Disciple hand signs. But this developed in 2015-16 into a local neighborhood gang here in Lincoln. That became very problematic. The longer they stayed together over the years, the more and more violent they got. Started doing street robberies, resulting in somebody getting shot and killed. And so some of the examples I'm going to give to you guys are the worst case scenarios, and it just highlights why we as law enforcement professionals, social service professionals, school professionals, why it is so imperative that we are getting involved with these individuals at the earliest possible stage so that we can try to disrupt that trajectory of that cohesive group becoming more violent. National-based gangs, not going to touch here, but these are the ones you've all probably seen in movies, through documentaries, your Crips, your Bloods, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, Serenos, what have you. So that influence is here in Lincoln. We do see that. It drives a lot of what we're seeing. Already touched on local neighborhood gangs. This is just another example that I'm going to highlight. 2 different gangs kind of started forming up. They got in several fist fights. The rivalry continued. Ultimately, what ended up happening is this ended up in a fight in a front yard where one gunshot was fired and somebody was killed. So again, the examples you're going to see are not every day, but the reason we're highlighting them is just to say, hey, you know, we all hear that term wannabe, but these are the folks we should be paying attention to, offering resources, trying to get through to them, so that we're disrupting that kind of groupthink mentality, if you will. Just some of our trends. You can see that on the right side, our gang members are involved in anything and everything that you guys can think of, from simple vandalisms with your graffiti spray paint, thefts, street robberies, assaults, and then, like I said, the trends we're seeing are if we allow that group to stay together for longer periods of time, we just kind of term them as kids being kids. They will progressively gain more and more of that gang ideology, which progressively leads to more and more violence, gun possession, other weapons possession. Even if they don't intend to use it, at some point they're going to be put in a situation where a split-second decision changes their life and somebody else's life for a significant period of time. So this is just, again, I'm really going to stress this. You can see historically we're about every year we've got one group that starts as juveniles in late middle school, early high school. They progress through and ultimately end up being involved in a murder. Unfortunately for us, that's the worst case scenario. Someone loses their life, and then several of the individuals involved are, doing prison sentences for significant periods of time. So, again, highlighting this is really why we're working with those middle schoolers. I think Matt will even highlight here in a little bit that he's working with some as young as elementary school age, just to get kind of a mentorship influence with them. Just a couple pictures. We see movies, we see documentaries. It's all kind of scary stuff, but it doesn't happen here. I just highlight just through social media, through information we collect. This stuff does happen here. It's no different than anywhere else. It just happens on a little bit different scale, plus or minus, depending on what community we are comparing to. And so this is out there. Simple hand signs, simple wearing of gang type of clothing. Again, it just is progressively making that or strengthening some of that gang ideology. A term I use quite a bit is legitimacy. When I talk about legitimacy, an individual that has some sort of gang affiliation is typically looking for legitimacy from a couple of different groups. They're looking for gang legitimacy from their rival gang members, and they're looking for gang legitimacy from their fellow gang members. And what I mean by legitimacy is they need to act and behave a certain way under those gang rules, that gang ideology, to be seen as legitimate. Whether they want to or not, that's just the way in that little mini culture that is being fostered to act, right? And so now when you have a core group of 6 or 7 of them, you may have one instigator, one informal leader that's kind of pushing a lot of this gang ideology, and they're really influencing through peer pressure among these other 5 or 6. So one individual can really have a huge impact with the youth population that we're all working with at some point or another, right? Just another example, see it across the gang, different gangs. Those that pay attention to social media, it's out there for everybody to see. Outside of making it private, I'd recommend making yours private. But social media, you guys, if you're paying attention, you're going to start seeing this. What I will tell you trend-wise with social media and guns, early on, we thought that investigatively, if you were to highlight that we knew people were doing this on social media, that it would go away, right? We would lose some of that intelligence to help us prevent some of the future violence. What we've learned in the time since, over the past 6 years, our younger generation is just so, let's all addicted to that social media, their phones, right? They want to push out this image or persona to all of their peers, or even people they don't know that they've linked up with through social media, and they just can't help themselves, right? They're building their reputation, their brand, if you will, through social media, and so we are seeing more and more people feel the need to start showing off their guns. Even if it's one gun and the whole group is taking pictures with it, that's a gun that's being passed around in that group. And like I said before, could be used within a split second, bad decision, and so that's what we're kind of looking to prevent. Kind of highlighted these, so we'll skip over it because I don't want to cut into Matt's. I do want to show, highlight this video, which we've had since 2017. But just to set the stage here, this white car will be involved. You're going to see these headlights up here. This is the intersection of 21st Street and G Street. These lights up there, kind of in the middle of our the wording, that's Lincoln High School at about 8 o'clock, right? So at the gas station right across from the high school, you guys are going to see these guys getting into it, the rivalry between these two groups. spilled over into what's captured on surveillance video here. Maybe not. All right. We'll come back to this. Long story short, what you would have seen, sorry, is this car. You're going to see somebody get out. They're going to get into the trunk, presumably to get the gun that they're about to use. They're going to pull up. They're going to exchange some words between the two cars. And two of the individuals are going to get out of the car that comes from the intersection, kind of fight over who wants to have the gun to do the shooting. And then they shoot multiple times as the white Jeep flees into the residential area across from the school. While this is in 2017, it's just one we've had captured on surveillance video, but we are dealing with this not on a daily basis, not on a weekend basis, but it does occur in our community. So again, something that we're looking to prevent. Let me just the best part. So what is the Lincoln Police Department doing? Touch on that real quick and then turn it over to Matt. So we have a strategy within the Lincoln Police Department, within the gang unit, which we have built off of the comprehensive gang model. As you can see on the left side here, there are 5 different strategies that all work together. They all kind of intertwine. The hard part about this for us is just having the resources to accomplish all of it efficiently. So how we have been able to do that with the resources that we have available. Our community mobilization. We're doing gang presentations just like we're doing today. We're coordinating with the community, with Lincoln Public Schools, probation, diversion, coordination with social services. We're getting out what the trends are that we're seeing. We're trading information, and we are mobilizing those other organizations to provide their expertise as we work to provide these opportunities for our youth. Our opportunities provision within that gang strategy is just that, the opportunities with which we as a community collectively, the police department, Matt through his gang outreach, you folks with social services, with the schools, what opportunities can we offer that start to reduce the ability and or the opportunities for these individuals to get involved with the gang or criminal activity? Is that sports? Is that counseling? Mental health services? Help at school with homework and getting caught up? Whatever it might be, those are the opportunities that we're working to provide to make that individual as successful as possible. Our social intervention, this is Matt and Tipping Point at its finest. I'll let Matt get into that. But the coordination Matt has with all the other social services within our community of Lincoln builds this foundation of the gang outreach program. So I'll turn that over to Matt here in just a minute. Suppression, that's what law enforcement does. We have to investigate these crimes. We try to prevent as much as we can. We'll never know how much we've actually prevented versus not. But what I will say is I think we're all here in this room collectively trading ideas, sharing thoughts, because we don't want to get to the suppression piece, right? We want to provide those opportunities, that social intervention, before we get our youth into the criminal justice system, right? And then our organizational change and development. This is where Matt and I have been fortunate to work with some really great partners. in order to help kind of set, whether it's policies, other strategies, working at times with different legislative bodies to enact or help with potential funding. Whatever it might be, we're trying to change some of that stuff fundamentally so that it makes all of our jobs a little bit easier and it provides a few more opportunities for us to work with and offer up to our youth. Where we really focus down is our prevention with MAT, our suppression, and then our gang education or awareness, which is exactly what we're doing here. Presenting trends, sharing ideas. So, turn it over to you, Matt.
All right, I'm not used to talking about these things. I usually yell, so I don't know, I'm not used to talking. My name is Matt Baker. I know some people out here, so it's good to see you guys. I guess just a little quick background on me. I was born in Oakland, California, which we consider the hood. My mom was a drug addict. My dad liked to sell her the drugs, so that's how they met. That's how I was born. Growing up, when my mom was in rehab, I was living in between different reservations, Pine Ridge, Rosebud, Winnebago. When my dad was in prison, then I go back with my mom. She was still using drugs. So I've been in the system. I understand how it works. That's why I'm so passionate about this. This is why I'm passionate about the kids that I get to work with. So just real quick, I do things a little different. So I know a lot of people here are probably looking for maybe some evidence-based practices, maybe something that you can take home. I'm not too big on giving somebody a layout of how to work with kids. It just doesn't work. You can't turn the page and say, well, 4A tells me I need to do this on this situation. It doesn't work that way. And I'll kind of go into a little bit about that, and I knew that because I was growing up in the system. And in many ways, I'm still involved with the system because of my siblings, my nephews, my uncles, my aunts, they're all in the system still. So I'm constantly working with people within the system. So when I first started this job, a long time ago, when I could say I was still young, we didn't really quite know what to do with this position. It was kind of laid out that it was supposed to be a 90-day kind of a push-through system. I don't know how to say it, but so a kid would come, get referred to me, and then I would get the referral, and then I would try and work with different agencies in Lincoln, and then hopefully they could build a relationship, and then after that 90 days, I could kind of let it go. But it came, well, I kind of knew that wasn't going to work, but after the first 6 months, it was really apparent because there's a lot of issues that my kids go through, and if you run programs, you know that a lot of the kids that I work with aren't allowed to go to some of these community partners. They've already been kicked out. A lot of my kids can't go to the mall. They're permanently kicked out. They can't go to the rec centers. They're permanently kicked out. And some of my kids, I don't want to send them to a community partner because they're going to go there and they're going to sell drugs. And then that's just the reality of it, right? So I'm working with the 1% of 1% of kids, right? So you're talking, so when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking in general terms, working with youth, even if they're considered at risk. I'm just talking about the specific kids that I work with. When I first started this job, it was mostly seniors doing the majority of the violent crimes. And then I looked at middle school as being prevention. And then when I started working in the job, I started realizing how easy it was that I started identifying kids in the elementary age. And so then we dropped all the way down to the elementary age. If you're wondering how you identify that, I train schools and I talk to them, and so I just have a couple of things. The first one that I've always said, are they on free and reduced lunch? I don't want to know their income. I don't want to do that. I don't know if I have time to I do these rants at the end of these things, so maybe you'll hear it. But just free and reduced lunch. It's an easy yes or no question. You can ask the administration. Is it a single parent home? Doesn't matter if it's a mom or a dad, but a single parent home. Is there criminal behavior, or has there been criminal behavior, or is the family in the criminal justice system, and are they first generation American? So if they hit one of those five, just one of those five, you're in. I don't care. Because my idea of working with the young age is I know I'm going to work with a lot of kids that are not ever going to think about joining a gang, but I can promise you I'm going to get every single one of those kids that will think eventually that they want to join a gang. Does that make sense? So if I get a referral in elementary, let's say I get a fifth grader, and I lose contact with this fifth grader, if they get any middle school kid that gets referred to me, I've already met them in elementary. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, right? So if I get any middle school referral or any high school referral, I've already met them in elementary. So I've already started building that base. I just keep things real simple with the program. Really what I do is more mentorship. I do life skills classes, and it's really about getting to know the youth. Because you could take all your evidence base, you can take all your best practices, and to me, it's all BS. It's all BS. Because we know mentorship works. We know if you really want evidence-based practice, go look at mentorship. Go look at it. It's not these 90-day programs. It's not having this complete structure and this having their life lined up for them and helping them along the way. It's mentorship. That's mentorship. And I can tell you, working with my kids, it is mentorship. And we all know that mentorship is the only position that is not paid for. And so now we know that the people in these communities that I get to be in, just if anyone's from Lincoln, this is my background. I lived off 9th and D, I lived off 12th and G, and my address is 3438 Portia Street, growing up. So if anyone knows Lincoln, you know where those areas are at. And so I can speak, because I'm from those areas, that the solution to working with kids that are gang involved are actually in those communities. They're actually living in those communities. Those are the people that are going to help these young men and women grow up to have a life that they're proud of. So then what do we do? What do we come back around to? We say to these communities, we want your help, but you're not invited to the table, really. You're not really invited to the table, because the only way you can be invited to the table is if you have a bachelor's degree, you don't have a criminal background, if you have all these things. So all these things are already working against the community. And then what we do is we hire somebody that's not from the community because they have a 4-year degree. They're probably young, and they're probably scared to go in that community. And then now those are the people that are supposed to help the kids. So that's why the system's broken. So I push for mentorship. If anyone here is looking at probation, if anyone's here diversion, I think that you need to have full-time mentors in each one of these programs. You have to do it. And I can explain why. Eventually that'll help save money. And it's got to be from people from that community. We got to stop telling people just because you don't have a degree the way I want you to have, or you don't dress the way I want you to dress, or you don't talk the way I want you to talk, then you are no longer hireable. Because the kids see that. Now where's their ceiling at? If all we do is tell them that their friends and their family and the people they look up to in their neighborhood, they're not even invited to the table to help you out. And so the kids see that, because I can tell you, if I talk to a young kid who I work with, what they want to be, and then I go somewhere else that has more affluency, and I talk to that kid and ask them what they want to be, I guarantee it's going to be completely different. And the reason why I bring it up is I'm working in the system, so I'm speaking my voice because I feel like I'm at least trying to create change. But for us to start wrapping our minds around, what are we doing? Coming up with a new evidence base every 5 years, I'm telling you, I'm just using evidence base for what I do, not for what anyone else does. Where's the evidence at that this is getting any better? There's no evidence this is getting any better. It's one kid at a time. One kid, that means one mentor that can help one kid at a time. And maybe you have a mentor like me. I have 78 kids right now. At my peak last year, I had 138. I was in 14 schools, and I was just getting ran to the dirt because I couldn't really provide for the kids. So I had to cut my numbers in half. So now I don't take any more. I'm trying to stay in the high 70s. So I'm constantly turning kids away. But I think it's important that we start to relook how we're viewing the kids we're serving and the communities that they're living in. Because I'm going to say us, not you as an individual, us as a collective unit that are working in the social service field is failing them. We're failing them. And the numbers show it. I'm Native. So I'll speak for my people, for me. And Natives that live where I'm from. We're less likely to graduate high school now. We're less likely to go to college now. We're less likely to graduate college now. We're more likely to live in poverty now. We're more likely to join a gang now. So we have these evidence-based programming, and I'm telling you guys, the reason why I keep going back to that is because we look into that too much. Anyone, I don't know, it's just me, but I look, and it's like everything we do is about the numbers. And I get it, we're tied to grants. Numbers are important, and I'm not saying they're not. But everything we do is tied to a number. I go on these subcommittees, we talk about numbers, we talk about the kids, we talk about them in numbers. We talk about graduation rates by numbers. By the way, Natives were never invited to that party, if you guys ever look at the charts. And I get told because we just don't have enough numbers. When we report our quarter reports, we send them numbers. And then they collect the data with the numbers. And then how do we get funded? Through the numbers. And then what do we want to talk about? The numbers. And then we go to the kids and we tell them, hey, don't be a number. So it's all about us. I would love it if we talked about success stories, and maybe we don't give a name, but maybe it's like, hey man, Johnny's smiling a lot. Man, I love that. Man, did you see how this person walked this person across the street or helped this person out with groceries? That's success. You see, the problem when we talk about numbers, and I'm not saying they're not important, so I'm not saying they have an importance, but it's not all the importance. The thing about numbers is, how do you define happiness? The thing about numbers is, when we talk about success, it's success in our own view of success. I work with kids. A success for them is to not go to prison. A success for them is maybe not to graduate, maybe not to get the A's, maybe not to get the C's or the D's, but maybe just go to school. Maybe that's success to them. But I can't sit there and I can't define that as success for them. And the only way that we can get them to view themselves without a low ceiling is through mentorship. I always laugh and the kids joke around because I'm the gang guy and I don't ever talk about gangs with my kids, ever. I don't ever bring it up. Because what's the point? We got teachers tell them, hopefully guardians tell them. We got Jeff over here chasing kids down, telling them. No. So you got all that information, they know it, they understand it. So obviously telling them not to do something is not working, at least for the kids I work with. So it starts with a handshake and a smile. Sometimes I'll go 6 months knowing a kid, and I won't bring up anything at all. We'll just play checkers, we'll shoot hoops, maybe I'll take them to the movies, maybe we'll grab some canes, we'll just hang out. Because them seeing me, and I can say, I'm from where they're from, and they can see how I conduct myself. That goes a long ways. I get paid for doing this, and so I hear all the time, like with mentors, well, if you got paid, it would defeat the purpose. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all, really. I mean, where else in life do you have a specific person with a specific skill set from a specific community that can only offer things that they can offer, and then we say, you know what, give it to us for free? I'm not someone, Jeff knows I don't bring up racism a lot because I feel like I try and fight it through a smile and through what I do as a human being. But let's just be honest. What do those people look like from those neighborhoods? So we talk about systemic racism, and I hear it all the time, and I'm like, I don't think these people really even know what it is. Because what I just told you is systemic racism. That the people from their own communities, that we have money to pay to help communities, and we're not inviting them to the table. I'm not doing a racism class right now. I do those, so I'll try not to. I was like, my mind started rolling around. I said, I'm going to go out on this. No. So one thing I found out working with the kids, I have almost no success if I don't know a high school kid before they're referred to me. Almost zero. It's so hard. It's so hard. They're cool with me. They'll come hang out with me. But to change that behavior pattern is so hard when they're already 17, 18 years old, or 16 years old. I'll bring a story up. On the other hand, if I start working with a kid in elementary, and I follow them, so last year was my first year following kids from elementary through high school. This year was my second year. Last year I had 8 for 8 kids graduate. This year I had 9 for 9. Next year I'm on point to go 16 for 16 kids to graduate. All from telling them nothing about gangs. On the other hand, I've had referrals from kids. Well, I'll bring up one last year. He was 16 years old. I never met him. I like the kid. I think he's a hell of a kid. You know, but he liked stealing cars and then taking them out to a dirt road and lighting them on fire, or taking them to their neighbor's house and shooting bullets through them, and then selling drugs. And he always said the right things to me. And I'm like, man, yeah. You know, I start writing about him, and all of a sudden I start seeing his name in the newspaper. So I want us to think about the mentorship and how much it costs someone to mentor here. If they're willing to pay us $50,000 a year plus benefits, right? That's not, okay? So this thing about $50,000 a year plus benefits, I don't know what benefits cost. But I want to talk about this older kid. So I worked with him and his mom for 6 months. We had our ups and downs, but the street just kept on taking him back. It just kept on reaching out to him, finding wherever he's at, and taking him back. And you start to see these behaviors start to tick up. Next thing I know, I'm in court with mom, I'm in court with him, and he's looking at 20 years. But like a lot of the kids I work with, they have mental disabilities. So he has borderline Asperger's. So the court can't do anything with him. Like a lot of my kids. They can't send them to jail, they can't do anything. So right now he's in Omaha, 24-hour, someone has to watch him for 24 hours for $38,000 a month. But we don't have money to pay for a few mentors to help that kid. Because I'm telling you, if I would have met that kid in 5th grade, I promise you he wouldn't be where he's at now. I promise you. One thing I do, so just so we're clear, all I do for my program is mentorship and life skills groups. Elementaries, I tend to do group focus because when you have kids learn at a young age how to be positive influences on each other, then that's going to carry you over to the older grades. Middle school, I just replicate that. I'm just doing groups. Yeah. Oh, you guys are doing the game? Oh, bring all the homies. Bring all of them. I want them. Bring them here. And so the schools, they allow me, I just come in when I want. They call my kids. We go hang out for a little bit. We laugh. We talk. But then we get real. We have real conversations. And you'd be amazed what these kids are willing to talk about. Talk about their insecurities. And then they start confronting their own friends for being fake. Say, no, you don't feel like that, man. I know you're a good dude, right? I have a short amount of time, so I just want to just talk about, I know some numbers are important, so since pre-COVID, now, the girls that have been girl referrals, young lady referrals, has went up almost 500%. They take up almost 25% of my caseload now. We used to write a grant, and they would always tell us, well, can you find at least one girl you can mentorship? And now that's like flipped. And especially with my middle school and high school kids. About one out of every four now are female. So I just think that's important. The young kids now, my elementary kids that I work with, they all have guns at an elementary level. All of them. All my middle school kids, they all have guns. I know this because I see it on social media. I know it because people tell me. And I know it because I get LPS, that's Lincoln Public Schools, they call me and they say, so-and-so just brought a gun to school. He's in 5th grade. So that means all of my high school kids, they all have guns. I know that I'm more privy to, I don't ask, so one thing that we do is, Jeff never asks me about anything I'm doing. He just asks me where I'm at. So I don't talk about my kids with them. I don't give him sliding information. He doesn't come up to me and say, hey, this person's doing this. We don't do none of that. It's the only way it works, right? Because I work for the police department. So, I don't know how much time I have. I could just...
We got about 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Before I get talk, does anyone have any questions? Questions? No questions? Awesome.
Yeah, some questions. Not from you. Go ahead.
Good.
Fireman.
So basically, when you mentor these kids, you just approach them as a friend. You don't ever talk about on the street, communicating.
Those conversations pop up, right? Because I'm having youth groups, but I let them kind of carry those conversations, and then I talk about maybe like why they're thinking about something, right? One thing I always like talking to them is about the bad juju. So people like me, people that grew up like me, they, for whatever reason, we kind of cling on to negative behavior. And so anything negative, like, will represent, like, oh yeah, man, you seen all that? But then as soon as something positive comes, you're like, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So that's what they all do. So that's kind of the start of our conversations, really, is getting them to understand who they are. Because my number one rule is that we're not going to front in my group. So fronting means you got to be honest, right? So just get them to understand, like, everything that they're saying, I'm cool with. Just do it. Just do it. Just don't stunt. Don't front. Be honest. Be real. Your favorite color is pink. It's pink in the group. If you like playing with action figures or watching Pokemon and you're in 9th grade, that's cool. We'll be all right. And you'd be amazed, all these hardcore kids, what kids they really are. And I don't even have a definition for it, but I still find myself doing that sometimes. Where I'm more leaning into like the negative, talking about the negative stuff I've gone through, or maybe I'm pretty self-destructive. It just goes with the nature of where I'm from. So like I'll kind of lean on that, and then I'll kind of forget all the positive things that I'm doing in my life. And so those kids are no different. I had a kid, my first true intervention kid was a 5th grader. His older brother was a high-ranking gang member. His father was a high-ranking gang member. And his grandfather was a high-ranking gang member. So, when I saw this, naturally, my natural instinct is like, what can I do? How can I help? How do we fix this? But there is no fixing that. That kid's gonna go home to that every single day. I'm not gonna go into the house and talk to Pops about changing his ways. He's not gonna do it, and especially when they all live together in the same house. So how do you work with a kid with those challenges? Just started playing basketball with him, started going out playing soccer. And every time I could find a compliment, I'll give it to him. And he always say, thank you. That's what he do, he say, thank you. And then I started talking to him about, minor things. About, how's school going? I hate school. Oh, I hate school too. What do you hate about it? Well, the teachers suck. The rules suck. The principal sucks. I said, okay. How do we make it less sucky for you? I don't tell him to not hate the principal. I didn't tell him to do better in school. I said, how do we make the day less sucky for you? He said, well, I like it when you show up. I said, okay. Well, what happens when I'm not here? And he says, I always like it when this teacher comes and talks to me, right? So then I start building up a support group within the school. So this is this one kid, this is generally what I do. So I'll start building a support group within the school. And so you gotta have schools that are really on board. And my program's big enough now where I just don't mess with schools that aren't on board because it just doesn't work. So I always find a social worker. So that social worker is gonna be my go-to person. So if anything happens to that kid, or if I have any concerns, that's my contact. I'm a social worker. I don't know if anyone here is a social worker, but social workers are the best because they know the kids, it's their whole life, and so I work with the social worker. And then what I do is I start working up the ladder, and then I start to get to know the teachers, and I start talking to the teachers, and I say, hey, I always say Johnny because I don't know how to say John. Johnny, I say, Johnny told me when you do this, this is what sets him off. So now I can start advocating for that kid. And the teachers, a lot of times, say, oh, I didn't know that, Maybe sometimes the teacher has a little bit of ego, it's all good. And then I start working my way up to administration, and I start thinking about the next school year, and I'm like, hey, let's figure out the right teacher for this kid. Let's figure out the right teachers for this kid. Because for me, the teachers meant everything. If it was a good teacher, I was an average student, and if it was a bad teacher, I was a 0.0 GPA student. And so you start building these support groups within the school for the kid. And now you got something, right? You got something. So elementary, middle school, that's what I do, and then high school is a little bit tricky. People that work in high schools, they know how tricky it is in high school because it's like the amount of time you can pull a kid out of school is very limited. So I do most of my high school work after school or before school. Okay, I just got a couple of minutes. I want to talk about how my work has changed in Lincoln from pre-COVID, during COVID, after COVID, just real quick. I did almost all prevention pre-COVID. during COVID, I started seeing intervention. Towards the end of COVID, I was literally going into homes telling kids to throw away their guns. And it's stuck there now. And I know this is not what I personally like doing, but I get information from other kids talking about, hey, so-and-so is gonna go do a drive-by. So-and-so is telling they're gonna go shoot up this person. So now I'm at that house with the guardian, and sometimes we're literally just throwing mattresses up trying to find something. A lot of times that something might come up. And so Lincoln, what I've done, my love is prevention. We're working on trying to get an intervention specialist, but you can see that the difference of the needs. And we're not talking about 18-year-olds, we're not talking about 17-year-olds, we're talking about 12-year-olds, we're talking about 11-year-olds. 90% of the kids that I work with right now are not elementary, but middle school. Any questions, anything?
I had one. So do you ever get resistance from families then that are very active in gangs? Like they don't want you to work with their kids or they don't want you around? Or is it because you approach kind of so laid back and you're not asking those questions that they're okay with it?
I've never had a youth or a family turn me down. And so I've probably worked with maybe 800 kids by now. So I've never had one of them turn me down. And a lot of it too, working with the schools, so the schools does the majority of my work for me, to identify the kid, to reach out to the families. So because it's just me, I have to partner with those schools, and then they have to kind of buy into my program. So they do a lot of the legwork. So by the time the kid gets to me, the family's already on board. So they might have had families in the past, but as far as like me personally, I've never had any of them. And that's the thing, is because I'm the only actual gang specialist in Lincoln, I have to kind of use those resources. I hope nobody always sneezes, they want me calm. But I've been working with Steve for a long time. He's amazing. He's my go-to programs are Hope and Noble in the Bay right now in Lincoln, because I feel like they're different than other programs. So my kids, they don't want structure, not that way, not that kind of way, not a traditional structure. They want people that look like them, or at least that have been in similar situations as them. So right now, my main two go people are Hope and Noble and the Bay. So if anyone here is working with gang kids and for whatever reason you don't get out to me, those programs are amazing with gang kids, amazing. And I think all the programs here in Lincoln are amazing, but not all of them are equipped to handle actual gang members in the program.
Can you say the name again of the first program?
It's Hope and Noble. We'll be presenting tomorrow too, so if you guys wanna, it's the last presentation tomorrow.
There's a plug. I try to send my kids to like rec centers and then more traditional programming. Those programs are amazing. I love them. They just don't work for my kids. They just don't. I mean, I can't send them there because they don't have the structure, or my kids can't go there anymore because they've been kicked out. Any other questions?
We're at Omaha. In Omaha, we have this group of like 11-year-olds, and they're like the untouchables. And so the gangs are heavily recruiting our 11-year-olds because they can shoot things up and there's no consequences because then they can't be deemed competent to go on probation. So heavily recruited. We run in a lot of times that the parents don't take it seriously. They don't understand that their kids are being targeted like that, especially if there's also mental health issues. Any tips or strategies?
You gotta meet them in school. Because I have the same issues, right? I know that our scale is different, but that's why, like, my program was not supposed to be in like public schools. And I literally just started going into public schools and introducing myself, and then they started buying it. Our number one, so we had a UNL, they did like an oversight on our program. The number one prevention is having a kid at school. So if you can meet them at school, so just real quick, if I try and send any one of my kids to a program after school, like on a different location, none of them ever show up, ever. They don't show up. But if I can get someone like Steve to come to school, or someone like, sometimes I've had like YMCA, YWCA, they actually come to school, even if it's after school hours, but they're there on campus, almost all of them show up all the time. So we have to meet them at school. And the parents think, parents or guardians are truly almost non-existent in my program. Most of them are like, hey, I'm glad you get to work with my kids. I'm out. Because they're busy. I don't know, busy, or maybe they don't have the skills, whatever it is. So meeting them at school. And it's better when they're young if it's during school hours because it feels special and they want to see you. So that's my thing is my other thing is we need programs on the elementary level. Right now in all of Lincoln, I'm the only one in elementary schools. I'm the only program in elementary schools. And I think maybe the Bay might be, maybe not, I don't know. But I know I'm the only one in elementary. All the elementary schools, I'm the only resource that elementary schools has that will actually go to the school. And so we need to really think about, it's not that hard to identify kids that need support. But if we get too evidence-based, then we start trying to think, oh, well, this won't work because you can't get the numbers. Like, just don't worry about that part. Just work with the kids that need the support or want the support. And you're going to find all the ones that you need the support within those groups.
So just to add to that, when we get to that level, in my experience, you're not probably going to be able to do something, nor are we individually, right? That's why collectively having this conference is such a great thing. Not only are you going to different courses or lectures, whatever it may be, but you're all networking. We're all networking amongst each other because we need to work with each other. And we have similar incidents here with that age group, and it is a very difficult age group. Some of the success we've had, and like I said, it's difficult, but what we kind of consider it as like a layered foundation. You guys have your specialty, right? As you network with other folks that are in the Omaha area, they have their specialty, and somebody else has a specialty, and then Matt's got the school working for him here, right? So throughout the day, 16, 18 hours that they're awake, right? We've layered it throughout. They're in school, and then maybe there's something somebody can take after school. And if they are committing those crimes or in the criminal justice system, now we're working with and partnering with probation. And probation is now one more layer of accountability, right? And so those kids that are committing those serious violations, I think you have to collectively look at what can we do, right? Not just you guys individually. So I would challenge all of us in this room to, meet other groups and figure out what's best for this individual versus this one, and what do we have at our disposal? What can we provide versus what can I partner with somebody else for them to provide, if that helps, because it's very difficult. Early on with probation, we didn't have the relationship we do now from a gang standpoint side of things. And it wasn't us, it wasn't them, we weren't communicating. And once we started communicating on a regular basis, it's as easy as a phone call now, and they do that extra stuff for the specific. We're out of time?
We're past time.
Yeah. Any last questions, and we'll just wrap it up. So, yeah.
I just have kind of a quick question just regarding intervention. Do you see a benefit working one-on-one versus addressing it as a group?
The older you get, the better one-on-one becomes. I always like doing younger because those are their friends. And a lot of times younger kids will have they'll interchange negative thoughts and behaviors with each other. So flipping that, and how do we make those positive relationships? And then now they have a support group when they grow up, right? But the older they get, one-on-one's the most important. I'll say for every high school kid that I work with, I can work with almost 15 elementary kids or middle school kids, right? So that one-on-one is way more important the older they get, right? Because the stakes are higher.
Last questions or
I'm
thoughts?
stepping up.
Great, thank you for everybody showing up.